It goes 3 or 4 years back already how this story started, but this is the first slide I show. I've done this presentation at the California Association of School Counselors, and I did it for this other big psychiatric thing out of Southern California, and they were interested about mindfulness in the classroom. How am I getting it to the kids? And what I'm doing is I'm training kids to do it for kids. And it's much more effective that way. So this is the first slide they see, and it's, why is your dog happier than you? And the bottom line is that your dog is in the moment and he sees what's in front of him instead of worrying about what already happened and worrying about what's going to happen. If you concentrate on what's happening right now, everything's going to be fine. So about me, how old I am, and that I was a graduate in sociology, but I spent 20 years in the real estate business. And then my wife, kind of on a whim, because I had this teaching credential, told me I should do something different. So I started substitute teaching, and then I subbed as a counselor, and I thought, hey, this is a job where I can really touch a kid's life. And so I've been at Valley Title I school for 25 years plus. And it kind of shows where Valley is located in the Central Valley. 97.5% of our kids are designated as students of poverty. 100% are free and reduced lunch. And they speak over 20 languages on my campus. So you get an idea how culturally mixed this campus is. And you worked here, so you know the difference. This is kind of our demographics right now. And it's very mixed. The Hispanic group is growing in our area. When I first came here, African Americans were by far the largest group. Then it moved to Asians, and now it's Latinx that are growing like crazy. And there's a smattering of everything else. But I believe in that every kid that steps on our campus every day wants to be successful. They just maybe don't know what that feels like, or there's a history in their family of success, but I believe they want that. Even the kid with the tattoos up on his neck and everything, he wants to be successful one day too. He just hasn't run into the right situation to teach him how to do it. So when the crowd was there, I asked who was in the crowd. And of course, it was mostly counselors because it was a counselor event, but there was a little bit of everything. But the administrators and district office people was the ones I really wanted there, because not only did they control the money, but they control a lot of the action on your campus. And I wanted them to understand how important this was. And fortunately for us right now, our principal came from counseling. So he had, and from a Title I school in the Salinas area. So he kind of had an idea of what I was talking about. So, a guidance counselor, I sat there and I tried to brainstorm about all the duties that guidance counselors in our schools have. And there's a lot of things that they do. And, and there's probably a lot more that could go on this list. But as you see at the end of the list, and other duties as assigned, all of a sudden your principal asks you to do something else. And then there's a bunch of stuff I'm sure that I didn't think of, and I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed because I played that role for a lot of years. So then I became a wellness counselor, and I found out that my list was just about as long. But here are some of the things that now have been concentrated in my office, is doing this kind of stuff. And it's a lot of stuff. And to ask a counseling staff to not only do that other thing to get them prepared for college and career, but to do this too, there isn't enough time. And plus, when you come from a Title I school, kids who come from a lot of trauma, a lot of this takes place. And someone needs to keep track of it to make sure that they receive the services that they need. So, and here's what you'll notice, that I use a lotus as a symbol throughout my presentation. The lotus flower is a symbol in Buddhism because it's a beautiful flower, but it grows in the murkiest and nastiest of stagnant water. So from the worst situation, a beautiful flower can grow if it's taken care of. So I wanted to use that as a symbol. I'm a very optimistic person. I keep my idealism alive, even though I'm an old guy. And I believe that the world can be a better place. So we just have to set our priorities. So what I asked all the people in the crowd to do is get off your laptops, quit taking notes. Who cares? Stay in the moment, and you'll remember what you need to remember. Why did I do this? I've been here for 25 years. And at first, when I came to this school, we had a very low college going rate. And so that wasn't satisfactory. So we did some other things, and it really grew pretty rapidly for a few years. And then it kind of plateaued again. And I'm thinking to myself, I know these kids come from poverty, but that's not an excuse. They're so I had to learn what different kinds of poverty are out there. It isn't just lack of money. There's emotional poverty that they can't control their emotions because they come from a place where people don't control their emotions. Intellectual abilities, spiritual, they don't believe in any kind of purpose or guidance. They don't have a support system. If anything goes wrong, they're homeless. They don't have family or friends or backup resources. To me, if I lost my job, I could think of 10 different places I could go where people would support me for a while till I got on my feet. The people in my school have nowhere to go. Role models, there's a poverty of role models. And then a poverty of hidden rules. When you're from cultures from all over the world, like the kids in our school, they don't understand the hidden rules. Like if the kids in my school are from England, we would stand a good 6 feet apart anyway to talk. But if all of our kids were from Italy, we'd be talking to each other like this, and that would be normal. And so there's hidden rules that kind of place you in the culture. And so there's a poverty of knowing how to act. And then there's ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And our kids come from a lot of trauma. And I wanted to ACE test all the ninth graders coming in, and the district started pulling their hair out, because not that they were just so against it, they were just worried that I would be so overwhelmed with kids coming out and telling me their stories that I would have CPS on speed dial. But my reaction, here's the thing that killed me, is they said, what if you trigger them? And I said, that's exactly what I want to do. I would rather trigger them now than wait until they're 35 years old and they have cancer or diabetes or have a heart attack and they die early because they've never mitigated the effects of these traumas that happened in their early life. So right now, I want to know so that we can start working on their resiliency. How are we ever going to get them out of the pain of these things unless we talk about them? And so I'm not shy about asking the hard questions. Unofficially, I have this group of kids we'll talk about a little later that I call mindfulness warriors, that I have trained to do mindfulness in the classroom. But I put these ACEs up on a screen and I said, don't tell me which ones you've been involved in. All I want you to do is nod your head if this looks like you. And all over 50 of them were nodding their head. They've all had these experiences. And the research that was done by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente indicates that if you have 4 or more yes answers on any of these 10, that by the time you're 40 years old, you will be suffering from severe physical ailments and die early. And as you go along and you get diabetes or you have a heart attack, then it kind of restricts you from the kind of professions you can go into. And it's just a revolving door of agony. And so I want kids to identify and then learn how to become resilient. Every kid in every school, and even the wealthiest school, those kids have stressors on their life too. So how do we teach them how to be resilient? And I think mindfulness is a good way to be able to get into the soul and do some self-talking to. And we'll get to that. And then now the people who do ACE testing have come up with 10 additional trauma. And every one of my kids has had some experience with this. Death of a caregiver, community violence, homelessness, discrimination, foster care. It's just on. And they stack these things up and they think it's normal. And then it kills them at 40 years old. I am not satisfied with that, just to get them a high school diploma and say, see you later. I care about them and I want them to live a long, healthful, and happy life. Happiness is the goal we're all after. So how do we get them there? But there's good news. The research says, and when I was given this role as a wellness counselor, I went, wait a minute, I don't have the right letters after my name, although I've been doing